Hi, this is Glow Bar Close Trader. This is a tool that can help with any strategy that uses a bar's size and direction to determine where stops should be when placing a trade. So you can select a bar and it automatically determines your stop loss based on your settings. It also determines risk and can place the trade automatically when the bar prints. So this bar has a little bit more time left on it, about 40 seconds, and we have it set to take a trade with 50% for stop loss and profit target. You can also adjust if it wants to include the wick in the calculation or not. And you can take the trade at any time, but also automated at the end of the bar. And you can choose the direction that the trade gets taken in based on the direction the bar is going, or you can just always go long or short. All right, this will print pretty soon here. This is also determining my risk size automatically based on settings I have set. There it goes, it fired. Place the trade exactly with the stops where they're supposed to be. The inspiration for creating this tool came from a strategy I developed for trading CPI news release. So this is a 1 minute chart the morning of CPI news release at 8:30. You see this very large bar that prints. This happens every month. And I noticed that there's a big retracement after the first minute of this bar in the majority of cases. And this is not trading advice, do your own research, but this is the strategy I was working on, and so that's why I created this tool. So in this case, you would set the bar as it happens. You wouldn't see any of this other information. As it's printing, you'd hit current bar. It would give you this information. I have it set for 25% of the bar in each direction for my stop and my profit target. And then as the bar is coming to a close, if this box is checked, it will automatically place the trade as it happens. And as it retraces in, you'd hit your profit target. Doesn't always work, but I find that it is a good strategy. So you can select whatever bar you want. The easiest way to do the current one is this button here, and it will highlight that bar, and it automatically places indicators of where your stop and profit target would go. How big those are set down here, and you can change them on the fly, and you can see it move in real time. You can reset what bar you're targeting with this button here to click on any bar you want. The most common thing would be to use the current bar for most strategies, and then you can clear the target with that button. And so the way this works is you set the bar you want. This one is kind of small and hard to see. Maybe I'll use a different bar to demonstrate. So these four buttons here dictate what, like how you want the size of the bar to be considered for the stops. So if you select with the bar, it's going to take a trade in the same direction as the bar. And since this bar is a red bar, it's going to take a short position with your stop above and your profit below. And then if you were to use opposite a bar, it does the exact opposite thing. And then if you just always want to be taking a long, or you just know for the situation you want a long trade, it won't take into account the direction of the bar. It'll always place a trade in the long direction, but based on the size of the bar still. And the same with short. And then there's two different modes to decide how big of a trade you want to take. One of them is the max risk mode, which is a helpful tool. It lets you put in how much risk you want to take for any given trade. So you want to take a $500 risk, and then the max quantity is kind of a safety so that you don't take more contracts than you want as your maximum. It could be anything you want. It defaults to 10. So on a live moving bar, it will actively calculate the position size based on where your stop is. Maybe we'll go with long since it's just more natural to see it on the bottom. So we have it set to a max risk of 500. So it tries to keep this risk as close as it can to 500 without going over. And you see the contract amounts that it would take change as the price changes. And then to take the trade, you just place order and it automatically puts in your stops. These stops can be moved just like as if you were using an ATM strategy with the default chart trader. And when it hits a stop, of course, it would close both of these orders out. So the other mode is this multi-contract mode. And this replaces the max risk and the place button with these boxes here. You see them flickering because if the bar gets so small, it'll just gray them out if it's too small to take a trade, because the price might move beyond those tiny stops basically. But I'll reselect a bigger bar for now. And what this does is just allows you to set some default quantities that you might want depending on how big your stops are. So you can customize that, and then on the fly you can decide which number how many contracts you want, and if you press one of the buttons, it takes the trade in a similar way, automatically placing your stops. So I'll close that out again. Then this control here just decides if you want to show how many points these stops are set for or not. And also in this mode, I forgot to mention, it gives you 3 options, and you can customize this in the properties to only have 1 option if you just want it to be simpler. And it shows you how much risk each of those options would be. So it shows you here how many contracts it's talking about, just for your quick reference. So 3, 5, or 6, for those amounts of contracts, your risk would be these numbers here. And the profit is also displayed. How much profit would you get for those different contract sizes? I think most people will use this mode. It's a pretty good feature. What else? So this tool has this glow effect to the line. Some people like a cleaner chart, so you can decide to turn that off or adjust its intensity with these sliders here. Just changes how big or intense it is. Same thing for the bar glow for your selected bar. You can also choose to, if you don't like the glow, you can just have arrows point to the selected bar, or you could have both. The colors for all of these things are customizable in the settings. So I'll go into how you actually use this tool. You add it just like any other tool once you download it through this on your command center here. You just import a NinjaTrader add-on. It'll pop up a box that you choose where your file is located after you download it. Then it installs it, and then to get it on your chart, you open the indicator window. It is built as an indicator, and you scroll to glow, and you find the bar close trader. I offer these other tools as well if you're interested to check them out on my website. But you just double click that, it puts it into the list of your active indicators, and then you hit OK. I'll remove it because I have 2 of them here now. But as soon as you hit OK, you'll see it apply here to your chart trader panel. That does have to be open, so you're not going to see it if the chart trader is not active. And I'll show you some of the parameters that you can set. Like I said, you can set all the colors for everything here if you don't like the defaults for anything. And then most of the other settings are just to set templates for a default. If you like your stops always in the same place for your strategy, you could have it set default. Whenever you added it to a chart, it would come up the way you like it. That's what most of these settings are. A couple of things though that aren't on the panel that can be helpful is, if you remember, I mentioned that when you're using the multi-contract mode, you can just make it 1 box. You would do that here. You would just set the default you wanted for just 1 box and how many contracts you want it to start with. I think you can do this up to 5 boxes if you like that many contracts available or that many choices available all the time. This live update interval, it sets how fast do the lines that get drawn on the chart for the stops before you take the trade, how fast do they move to follow the price. It takes more resources the lower you make this number. but it looks nicer when they move cleanly. I think this 100 milliseconds is pretty good. This slippage buffer is when you saw the place order boxes going green and gray, like switching between the two. They go gray when the tick, like if your stops are within 2 ticks of the current price. So if you can adjust the safety margin on that so the price doesn't move beyond your stops like as you place the trade. Uh, yeah, most of the like default settings you can change for your max risk and contract settings, stuff like that. I hope this tool can be helpful. Reach out with any questions. Have a good day.